All right. Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon, and we meet again for Masa Avenue International College Visual Open Day. And as for the Visual Open Day, the School of Business and Accountancy brought to you another interesting topic to be discussed with me today. We bring you another special guest speaker to discuss about the interesting topic that might uh, open our eyes regarding the diversity and inclusion. And before we start, I would like to have a warm welcome to Mr. Ameirul, Chief Operating Officer, COO of Carpedia Global Holidays and Denver. Hi, Mr. Ameirul, how are you today?
Hi, Miss Sarah. I'm good. Alhamdulillah. Thanks for asking. It's an honor for me to be invited to deliver such an interesting topic today. I look forward to share my experience in relations to the topic of diversity and inclusion to create effective learning environment
Hmm.
to all the audience today.
Yeah, we meet again this time, but obviously in different environment now.
That's
So
correct.
I'm Sarah, from the School of Business and Accountancy. I believe that this topic is also familiar with the higher education environment or higher education institution. So just a little bit of brief of introduction regarding Mr. Amirul for the audience who are watching us today. Mr. Amirul has a vast experience in industry and currently working with Carpedia as the COO. And he has also a total of 12 years working experience in operation, HR, management, and engineering, and also have 6 years experience as a speaker, trainer, and also coach. And besides that, he also has experience as a group HR business partner at Good Hope and also a senior corporate HR manager at the Pure Circle. So today, another interesting topic to be discussed is that regarding the diversity and inclusion to create effective learning environment. So without further ado, let me explore about this topic. Okay, so according to the research, okay, conducted by the Catherine dated on 7 January 2020, in her perspective view, diversity in the classroom is a valuable opportunity to enrich students' learning. And we could see a significant trend that impacting the Asian higher education as well. Um, they are creating a new prospect and imperative to harness the diversity for learning, and plus new institutions of higher education nowadays are doing collaborations with the universities from other countries as well to enhance the diversity uh, in the higher education culture. And if we could see that Malaysia also not miss this kind of opportunity, as we have variety of races and religions, and many institutions in this country also welcome international students from a various of countries. So the first question for Mr. Amirul, from your point of view, how would you define the terms of diversity? And is there any significant relationship between diversity, inclusions, and learning environment? And based on your experience as the COO of Carpedia, do you think that diversity and inclusion in the workplace is important for the effective learning?
Okay, so there are two parts of the questions. First is from my point of view, the definition of diversity, and then whether there's any significant relationship between diversity, inclusion, and learning environment. And secondly, based on my experience about diversity and inclusion in the workplace, whether it is important for effective learning. Okay, so I mean to answer the first question, the word diversity itself, let's talk about it in the simplest term is the state of having variety, the
Mm,
state of having a diverse apa diversity of something, right? Something
mm,
that have varieties. Okay, in that in that term, so basically it means that whatever in workplace environment or learning environment, um, pertaining to variety, whether, for example, a variety in terms of or diversity in terms of, it can be in many aspects: gender, religion,
mm,
culture, social, uh, apa namanya, different abilities,
mm,
and then different abilities can be in, again, physical or mental, and then it can be from, also from whatever that have differentiation between one group to another. That is for me the state of being diverse or variety, yeah. Okay,
mm,
so that is the first part of the question. Okay, so that's my point of view about diversity. So, and then whether there's a significant relationship between diversity, inclusion, and learning environment. um, I like to point out to my experience doing masters of business administration in Brunel University London, Brunel Business School,
mm,
Brunel University London, um, of which that was back in 2013, 2014. So that was my first experience in learning environment, whereby I am truly exposed uh, to a diverse group of people. The
mm,
diversity or the variety of group of people, if I can explain, uh, we have two intakes in our MBA program,
mm,
and um, as compared to a typical MBA program like in London School of Economy, or I mean those more established, that most likely, those that come are normally typically people who are in accounting or finance line or in business admin line.
mm,
However, in Brunel Business School, Brunel University London, the MBA cohort, they have September intake and they have January, February intake. I mean, there are two intakes, right? So
mm,
the variety of people that come to our MBA, that came to MBA program back then
mm,
during my time, the variety in terms of job occupation, they are, for example, they are lecturers. They were lecturers, army,
mm,
doctors, lawyers, accountants,
mm,
engineers, finance people. Um, procurement, supply chain. So like they represent each job function. We have a small team, a small cohort of about 20, 30 people in
mm,
two. So the diversity is like very wide. Okay,
mm,
and then not only that, they came from many countries, different countries like Malaysia, Singapore, China, Russia, Europe, Mesir, Egypt,
mm,
and Turkey,
mm,
Lebanon, and a few other countries, right?
mm,
So you can imagine the kind of diversity that we have, from country perspective, from occupation perspective, and then from, not only that, then religion perspective,
mm, mm,
from Muslim. Then we have also, I mean, again, I'm just going to share this with the hope, again, because we are, again, interesting topic, which I hope don't offend anyone. So we
mm,
have Islam Sunni and Islam Shia,
mm,
and
mm,
many other, so many
mm,
other background. We
mm,
have even atheists. So with this variety, and sorry, I have to emphasize this so that people can imagine the kind of diversity that I experienced back then.
yeah, mm,
So at first it was something, I would say, a bit of shock, because this diversity, the variety of culture, of worldview, of perspective, is something that I have never experienced, right?
Yeah.
To come back to the question where the significant relationship between diversity, inclusion, and learning environment, I would say that there's a lot of significant relationship
Mm,
between diversity and inclusion and learning environment. Okay, allow me, now that I have given the background, allow me to explain. So
mm,
when you have diversity of people in any
mm,
learning environment, like my
mm,
MBA cohort, so it is you will start to learn many things. For example, you
mm,
learn to 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 see, you learn to have the empathy. You
mm,
learn to have the um, try to empathy allow you then to understand the worldview of other people,
mm,
because we as a human,
mm,
our worldview is being formed by the way, by our environment, right? How we
mm,
are being brought up by that environment, whether people in Malaysia is different from Singapore, from China, from the
yeah.
environment. So
Mm,
that allow us to, because without empathy, so one thing that I've learned, it is important to have empathy, because sometimes when you see their worldview, their perspective, like it it doesn't make sense to you, so, so,
mm,
so but without allowing yourself, if you don't allow yourself to have the empathy to understand their worldview, then it is hard for you to go to the second part of this, which is the inclusion, how you can include them
mm,
in your, in as part of your team. Because if you already before you even start to know them, before you even
mm,
get to know them, you already have a bias, or have
yeah.
like a you have already formed certain opinion or judgment against them. So it
Yeah.
is
True.
important for me that diversity should allow you, should push you to develop a high level of empathy, because
Mm,
then you will try your level best to include people, from different kind of background,
mm,
because you need to be friend with these people, because it's a learning
mm,
environment, and to allow everyone to be comfortable, then you need to start adapt thing to one and another, to one another.
mm, mm,
Then its relationship to learning environment. Then now that I have explained about diversity and inclusion, by having empathy, by having empathy, and by having a high level of empathy, and start to include people of different background, and diverse
mm,
background, and whatnot. You will start to allow the learning environment to be shared between team
mm,
members. And it
mm,
is important for this to happen, because in the learning environment, if I can recall back my experience in the MBA program, we learn a lot through the argument, through the debates, through the opinions, thoughts thrown by this variety of people, of group,
mm,
and
mm,
lecturers during MBA program is just there to facilitate the discussion. Okay?
mm,
To answer the first question, to wrap up, for me, my point of view, diversity is anything that, having differences between men and women, and nowadays there's also, people who, different kind of cultural belief, religion, and
mm,
so on. So those that is diversity. And inclusion is about allowing us to,
mm,
is about allowing ourselves the practice of make sure everyone is given the same access to the opportunities and resources, for us to help them to feel comfortable, although they may
mm,
come from marginalized group, they can come from different abilities, for us to allow them to enjoy the same kind of experience in the learning environment. Okay, that's for
mm,
one part of the question. Second
mm,
part of the question is, based on my experience, as the CEO of Carpedia, and perhaps I will just extend it to my past experience. I think diversity and inclusion is very important in the workplace because, for example, for effective learning is because that, again, for example, I like to take us through a simple aspect of having diversity. Within board members, especially in Malaysia,
mm,
many board
mm,
members are typically men. And men have a certain ways of thinking. Different certain perspective, worldview.
yeah,
But if you notice, there are many case study whereby when they introduce a woman as a board member, and now and since we are just about to it's just celebrating Women International Day, so I like
mm,
to point out to this. Just by introducing women as a board member, or just by introducing women in the top management, you will
mm,
see that women will give different worldview, will give different perspective on any particular topics.
mm,
So just by having just a slightly different, just having another gender in a small
mm,
group, you will have
mm,
this kind of different opinions, different thoughts, different worldview, different perspective, right? So that
mm,
will allow in any workplace for us to learn different perspective, different way of seeing things, because
mm,
one worldview doesn't mean that's the only way for us to view the things, right? We can always view things in many perspective, in many different ways.
mm,
So for me, diversity and inclusion is really important. If you can have a diversity of people from different background, from different, and at any aspect. For example,
yeah,
for example, nowadays, people used to, for example, maybe, people used to hire from certain university. For example, at certain workplace, they have certain preference to hire
yeah,
for certain university. So
mm,
by limit by limiting yourself just to have people from the so-called elite group, or elite high tier of university and whatnot,
mm,
you are limiting yourself in terms of the ability or capacity of people that you bring on board, in terms of what they are capable, or what they are exposed to.
mm,
So I
mm,
always believe that um, we should allow diversity as much as possible. um, 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 which then will allow at any workplace for us to learn effectively. This is because, again, if I can give another example, by allowing just have um, a certain group age to come into your workplace. For example, in Carpedia, we have young generations in our team members,
mm,
whereby
mm,
they did their internship with us, and then they prove themselves worth to work with Carpedia, and
mm,
we absorb them after internship. So these young
mm,
people, they live in different era, as compared to
mm,
me, as compared to you. So it's just maybe a 5-10 years gap, but trust
yeah,
trust me, it is a huge gap, even 5 to 10 years, or which now I feel slight pretty old, speaking on talking to these young people, but they
yeah,
come from different generation, different era, and the way they think is something quite different, but is
mm,
beneficial to you, because they think differently from you. So you must allow your thoughts to be challenged. You must, because there is no such thing as doing one thing,
mm,
any process, anything that you do is correct all the time. Things might be correct at the point of time where you do that thing that way, but
mm,
things evolve, processes evolve, things change, many things evolve and change. So
mm,
um, diversity and inclusion definitely will allow you to continue to learn effectively, have effective learning at workplace, and will allow any company to grow. All right.
all right. So
Right.
such a good, very good answer regarding this I mean, actually diversity brings a lots of benefits if we could see here in terms of the not only about the different identity of the country itself, not including the peoples from the other countries. But I agree with your point that you are saying that involve simple diversity, working with the women itself, involved with the men's group. So yeah, I agree with that point, because before this we know that there is a gap between a man and a woman in the workplace itself. Even the women doesn't have a chance to give a promotion as the whatever the top management levels of the position. But now we could see if we bring the different gender, we are more open towards the diversity now. So
Yeah.
as for the second question, how does the diversity and inclusions promote this effective learning culture and makes students smarter in their academic performance and also in other skills as well? And most important, how does this diversity prepare the students for the real work environment?
Okay. All right. Okay. So to answer this question, how does diversity and inclusion promote effective learning culture and make students smarter in academic performance and other skills? I would say that because of diversity, you then need to exercise, you need to brush up on the soft part of your skills,
Mm,
which is adaptability, communications, cultural understanding, and many more. That
mm,
pertaining to human interactions, right? Because due to the fact that it is a totally a diverse group of people. Okay,
mm,
I can I can give a few example, and this might sound maybe funny or whatnot, but trust me, it only you can only learn this through a real life experience of having a diverse people in the team. For example, when I in my first work, in my first job as an engineer in Technip,
mm,
the population, many of the employees are French people, and they were, I mean, expatriate from France coming to Malaysia and perform their work because Technip, as a company, is a French-based company. The HQ is
mm,
in France. Okay, so French people have certain cultural and certain behavior, and
mm,
they also have a certain accent when they speak. All right,
mm.
so
Sure.
it was my first exposure, dealing with expatriates. So it's not easy in terms of communications because of the different accent. I remember this is something that I will always remember, and I will share. I work as a piping engineer supporting a piping lead for one project,
Mm,
um, whereby we have about 10 to 12 disciplines, of which from that 10 to 12 disciplines, only two disciplines were represented by Malaysian, the rest were
mm,
represented by French people. So
mm,
going to the weekly discipline meeting, whereby they have interface meeting, between piping, mechanical, civil, structural,
mm,
rotating and whatnot, all this engineering stuff. So when they talk for the first time, I was like, I could not, I could not even
catch
understand
up.
a single word coming from
Mm,
any of their mouth. But
mm,
my piping lead, who is a local Malaysian, one of the
mm,
two local lead for piping discipline, could
mm,
can see that he has to really like pay attention to what they say, but he
mm,
can understand and then answer it with a very clearly. So
mm,
that itself is an experience whereby it is not easy to be in a diverse environment,
mm,
coming with people coming from certain background. You just imagine just by having a group of people with different accent is already a struggle, for you. So that's why I said it is important to be exposed to this kind of environment, to this kind of diversity as fast as possible. It could be as fast as during the academic world, as a university
Mm.
student, or else the exposure should come as early as when you graduate.
Mm.
And by doing so, I think by allowing yourself to be exposed to different kind of people, culture and whatnot, um, you will learn many different aspect of culture, of different background, and that itself will allow you to start, again, improve on many parts of, um, many character of yourself, from the aspect of adaptability, from the aspect of try to understand these people's in terms of the cultural belief, cultural
Mm.
differences, and how they, I mean, in terms of their body language, the way they conduct themselves, in public.
Mm.
So
Mm.
there are a lot of things that I think, diversity and inclusion, of having variety of people in the group will allow you to, will promote effective learning, because you will have to really immerse yourself in that group, and learn on how to make sure you can maneuver the different kind of group of people with diverse background. All right,
Mm.
that will make you, I think, smart. Not sure whether it will make you smart in academic performance, but it will
Mm.
make you smart in terms of social skills.
Yeah. Mm.
So with that, because if I can relate and how it can perhaps help you in academic performance, because
Mm.
um, directly or indirectly, by having the exposure, or by having the access to different kind of culture, different kind of worldview and perspective, then academically or non-academically, in anything that you do, you will at least have a thought of how to think differently, how to think from different worldview, how to think from different
Mm.
perspective. And I think that's how maybe students can be smarter, directly in terms of their academic, or
Mm.
indirectly, and also can be smart in terms of other part, of the non-academic, in terms of the
Mm.
PR skill, in terms of socializing, in terms of negotiating things, in terms of
Mm.
making people to work toward the same vision, to work towards the same goals and objective. And
Mm.
then the second part of it, how does diversity prepare students for the real work environment? I think, in essence, whatever I have mentioned, those are the
Mm.
things that will help you prepare for the real work environment. Because if you are aiming to work in multinational companies, whether it is a local-based multinational companies, or international based multinational companies, trust me, you will be working with people from all kind of background, from different countries and whatnot, and these people will have their own way of working, or and even talking to you, so this will help prepare you. Because if you only exposed to, for example, in a Malay community base, for example, I'm just giving an example, you might have people, I mean, again, not just Malay, I think Malaysian based community, we are known to be soft spoken, we are known to be nice, we are known to
Mm.
be, orang kata, cakap berlapik.
Mm.
But if you are exposed to American, for example, they are very direct. If you are lousy, they will say you are lousy. If you are not good, they will say you are not good. But if you are good, they will also praise you that you are good. They will appreciate you. So if you do not have this exposure from the beginning, or even if you do not have exposure, if you do not learn about these cultural differences, you might feel offended,
Mm.
if you are being cursed. Again, I'm not encouraging that kind of environment, but it is
Yeah.
about adapting and understand the cultural differences that people have coming from different
mm,
backgrounds.
mm,
With that, with that, then only you can perform well in any environment, whether it's workplace or in your whether it's a real work environment or in any kind of learning environment. So that,
yeah, it's true. I agree with that point because I still remember that during I'm pursuing my MBA at Putra Business School. So this is that was the first time me exposing with the international students involved from Nigeria and also from India as well. And what I can see is that from their behavior in terms of the academic performance, they are not really good in the documentation purpose. But during the presentation, during the debating on certain topic, they are very good in the communication skills. So what happened is that happened that I'm in a one group. Was then back then I was in a one group with them. Um, Nigerian students and also with the Indian students that come from India, uh, we pass the communication part to them because what I can learn from them is that look confident tu penting lah. We need to look confident when we talk. Whatever we bullshit we're talking about, we need to be confident. That's what I learned from them lah. As for the question number three, in your opinions, what are the ways or action that universities can do driving diversity and inclusion in higher education, for effective learning environment? All right, sorry for the interruptions of the internet. Okay, so as
yeah.
for the third question, okay, I will repeat the question. In your opinion, what are the ways or actions, okay, that universities can do driving diversity and inclusion in higher education for effective learning environment, and especially during this COVID-19 pandemic, what are the ways that can be implemented by any universities or colleges to be more inclusive in the virtual classroom?
Okay. Again, I'm not from higher learning institution environment, but thinking out loud and seeing this thing, in my opinion, first thing first, the higher learning institutions should try to reach out to as diverse background as possible in terms of bringing the students to come to the university. One, I
Mm,
mean, it's about having a policy or having, setting a goal whereby you need to set certain target that people should for example coming from perhaps 20% from Asian, and then the rest should be from the other part of the world,
mm,
and then continue to go one level or two level below that. Okay, for Asian, they should come from whatever background, blah blah blah. Then only you will start to have a diverse background in any higher education environment. And then once you have this, I think in higher education or higher learning environment, especially during COVID-19, in
mm,
a virtual classroom, take this again. This is I mean, I think this is common to any of us, right? I mean,
mm,
we
mm,
tend to spend time or to be in a group whereby we see similarities that we feel
mm,
comfortable, because similarities allow us to be comfortable,
mm,
right? So we tend to be in a group of people of the similar kind. So where's the
mm,
diversity in that kind of grouping, right? So I
mm,
think
mm,
in learning environment, university or lecturers, and also in virtual classroom, in project assignment, in assignment when assigning certain projects or certain small classroom, it is you, I mean the lecturers, the universities, the facilitators, or the officers are the one who should be responsible in terms of grouping them, in terms of having the diverse background.
mm,
Because what else, they will tend to be grouped in people with similar thoughts, similar opinions, similar kind of background.
mm, mm,
So I think that is one simplest way you can do that. And then again, it always revolve around the idea that in whatever we do, we need to facilitate and allow these people to interact, to work collaboratively, uh, in a group of diverse background. You know, like I told you, in a group of five, try to make it as diverse as possible from
mm,
gender perspective, from race perspective, from religion perspective, from cultural perspective, from
mm,
from where they are coming from. And then
mm,
this again will allow a better and effective learning environment, because not only they will learn the subject or the topics or the projects, the group, the task assigned to them, but they will directly or indirectly be pushed to learn on how to communicate among each other and to
mm,
work
yeah.
closely, collaborate with each other. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it's so true because um, as a lecturer as well, I'm also facing the problem. It's not involve the international students, but then we have, mix of Malay, Chinese, and Indians. And sometimes got the students personally text me, Miss, I don't understand with this person and with these Indian students. I don't understand with these Chinese students because they have a different style. Can I change to the other group assignment as well? So I think me as a part of the involved in the higher education industry as well, uh, need to learn lots how to handle this kind of students learning. Itu baru Malaysian people, not involved the international students, so to make them have a persefahaman tu, it's a bit challenging, especially regarding dengan different races and sebagainya. But then I just told them, okay, you have to cope up with that because you don't have anyone in this class. You have this kind of diversity, so you have to be cooperate with them lah, as far that I can do to make them mix well lah, together in the group assignments. So as for the question number 4, okay, a second last question, we could see that yeah, there is a good or benefits of having diversity, but at the same time we see there is a challenge and also the negative aspect of implementing diversity in the education system, because we could see we could lose the cultural identity and then got some sorts of problems such as harassment, discrimination, bullying, and so on and so forth. So the main thing is that what can be the factors contributing to these problems, and what can you suggest to the higher education to prevent all these negative issues?
Okay. Um, mm, to answer the first part of the question, I think it is based on at least two aspects that I could think of. Is the policy, you know, and also the mindset and the environment of which we want to implement this so-called diversity and inclusion.
Mm,
Um, because it is always I think it always again try to relate with working environment. It always go back to these two things.
Mm.
The documentation SOP process that allows
Mm.
this thing to happen,
Mm.
and then the receptiveness of the people who are in the environment, which
Mm.
then is related to the mindset. It relates to the whether people are ready, to this kind of DNI, diversity and inclusion. So
Mm.
these factors are basically, definitely they will be problems, especially um, when organization, institutions wants to introduce this in the first place, and hence why
Mm.
it is important to continue to educate the target group that we want to implement this diversity and inclusion, that
Mm.
you know that any such bias, harassment, and so on will not be tolerable, will not be tolerated. Sorry, and how the institution can continue to educate that this it is always about the cost benefits. I mean, what's the benefits if you continue to embrace this? Because sometimes people are resistant, to this kind of changes, because it's not easy to work in diverse group. So
Mm.
factors that contributing to this again, because less exposure in this kind of
Mm.
setting. So
Mm.
but by implementing it, and perhaps stage by stage, phase by phase, then you can reduce this kind of problems. So I mean, to if for example, in terms of, if to answer, I mean, from a few aspect, for example, cultural identity, I think
Mm.
um, um, for example, the way I see it, again, based on my experience doing MBA in Brunel Business School, because it was so diverse, then in order to ensure that certain group of people still enjoying their so-called cultural, then they have like Japan Open Day,
Mm.
Asian Open Day, so that again it allow, so it have few impacts or effect. One, you allow this group of people to still continue enjoy their cultural identity, to embrace their cultural identity, but at the same
Mm.
time you allow these people to expose what are their cultural identity to other group of people. So I remember
Mm.
when I was in Brunei, there was a lot of such activities that promote um, certain themes,
Culture.
certain culture, certain uh, uh, different group of people or community. So that is one
Mm.
aspect. So to that one aspect of it. So it is already answering the second part of it lah. So I'm just
Mm.
explaining. So yeah, and then from harassment, I think it can harassment, discrimination, and bullying. I think it is always from procedural perspective, process. If this thing happen, how it will be managed, and then
Mm.
but it also again about preparing the mindset of people that we want to implement this so-called diversity and inclusion, on how we
Mm.
need to continue create the awareness, to educate people the importance of it. All right. So
Mm.
in essence, in to summarize, I think the factors contributing to this is from the part of readiness and acceptance to embrace DNI in any
Mm.
environment. So, in order to prevent that from happening, it is about thinking in terms of process, or documentation wise, SOP wise, policy wise, I would say, how then this can be prevented, and if it still happens, what are the channels that these problems and issues can be resolved. Okay.
Hmm. All right. So for the last but not least, Mr. Amirul, uh, can you share some tips or advice to the students, and also might be for the higher education industry, how they can plan and manage the diversity and inclusions for the effective learning environment?
um I think from students perspective first, um, um, again, speaking from my experience in two different, I mean, coming from UTP,
Mm,
which have um, diverse background, um, and also when I did my MBA, again, diverse
mm,
background. But the differences is that in UTP, because the kind of uh, group that I have, I mean the batch, because in one class you have hundreds of people.
yeah.
So the so-called diversity is not much felt, because I
Mm,
tend to spend time with people. Like I told you in the earlier discussion, that people tend to be grouped, in with people that come from certain background that have similarities in terms of background, right?
mm,
For example, those who are gamers, they will be grouped in the gamers group.
yeah.
Those who likes to spend time in so-called musical activities, they will spend time in this. Those who are more on the usrah or tabligh group, they will spend, yeah. So in a setting whereby the group is quite big, I've seen that the diversity and inclusion is quite hard to implement from the effectiveness perspective. But
Yeah.
when I was in when I did my MBA, again, it it's not much there's not much talking about diversity and inclusion, but because it is a small group, somehow you have to embrace diversity and inclusion, whether you like it or not,
Betul.
so for me, um, tips and advice to the students: if you have the chance to work with different group of people,
Mm,
try to do so, because there's a lot of things you can learn, from the way they think, from the way they see things. Again, it's about worldview, perspective, their way of working, their way of doing, their way of speaking, telling things.
mm,
So
yeah.
there's a lot of things. Um, for higher education perspective, I think plan and manage DNI for learning environment, effective learning environment. For me, again, it is important for the academicians. I mean, the lecturers, the facilitators, the ones that having the face-to-face interactions or online learning interactions to
Mm,
facilitate this. In the sense that allow this to happen. If the group is large, you will see,
mm,
they tend to group within the people that they are similar with. For
yeah.
example, you can see, for example, in any training environment, normally you will be given a number 1 to 5, 1 to 5. That's how
Yeah.
you can facilitate the randomness of group.
Betul.
So
Mm,
it is about facilitating for at the students grouping level to facilitate that, as much as possible allow this to happen. But at a higher level, again, it is about the policy, how you want to have this, how as an institution, you for example, you want to allow OKU to come
mm,
and study at your work, at
mm,
your institution, but
mm,
does your facilities, does your environment allow them to felt like they are welcome to the environment? For example, as simple as having people on wheelchair. Does your
mm,
facilities have RAM that can allow people to move easily? Does your
Mm,
facilities have lift that allow people to go up and down, people on wheelchair to go up and down easily? So there's
mm,
a lot of thinkings that need to be put, before you want to talk about diversity and inclusion in any environment, in any setup. Think from all the perspective that allow people to feel that they are welcome in that environment, that they are not marginalized, that they are not having, that they are not discriminated just by
mm,
the facilities, the environment, the system, and whatnot. I think
mm.
that, I mean, the thinking that that institution has to have is from that level and perspective. That's how I see it. Okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Cik Amirul, for very fruitful session sharing regarding the relations between the diversity and inclusions towards the effective learning environment. So we have come to end of our webinar session today, and it was a very, very interesting topic, and also it's for me it can open my eyes regarding the diversity, how it impact the education as well. So for Amiro, maybe in the future we can collaborate again for another interesting topic.
More than happy.
So, so to all the viewers, participants, academicians, and also to all the MISC staff, thank you for joining us and also listen and watch our live session today. And thank you again, Shamiro, for your time. And we appreciate your commitment and participation to share with us with this interesting topic despite of your busy schedule.
No.
So to all the viewers out there, if you want to know more about Masa Avenue International College, feel free to browse to our website www.mic.edu.my, and you can drop the message and we can contact our experts to get to know more the programs that we offered from the School of Business and Accountancy, as we are offering diploma in human resource, diploma in business, diploma in accounting, and also certificate in business. So for that, okay, the time has end. Thank you, Cik Amirul, and thank you to our organizer, Ms. Sohaila, for arranging this live session today. Stay
All
safe,
right.
stay healthy. Bye.
Yeah. Take care. Stay safe.